I, James, founded and work for HPI, but do not represent them or any of their opinions.
Welcome to Season 9, Episode 331 of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Every week, we definitively answer one question about the future of tech. To do this, we take into account many factors, including the companies involved, the people working for them, their marketing, and of course, the technology they're developing. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and getting people excited about the future of avenging is my brother, James Furlo.
Yeah, I saw that latest trailer. Here's good news. So I wanted to watch it with Jesse. Mm-hmm. And Eleanor was still asleep, but Samson was awake. So I just set it up on the coffee table and was like, we're going to watch it. Samson was glued to the trailer, just mesmerized by the entire thing. He's 14 months old, so I was like, this is a good sign. And just to test it, I put on another YouTube video, zero interest whatsoever, just walked off. I'm like, all right. So we know it's not just YouTube.
We got a budget buster. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's like, it's good news all around.
That's really funny. Actually, I like that, man.
Yeah. I wish he would whine a little less. That'd make him more enjoyable. But
give it time, right? I mean,
I don't think so.
No.
He's reached this new point where like that is his attention getting strategy. It's not a give it time thing. So we're putting in processes and controls as we speak to try to curb that what is now a habit and behavior. But I know.
Those neural networks, man, they're dangerous. They pick up on the patterns very quickly.
Yeah. Well, and what's made it worse is now he's learned if he just does a normal cry, we don't react. So he just amps it up. Has been his solution. So he just starts scream crying. I'm like, no, this is not cool. There's no technology to solve that little problem, unfortunately. But
see, the good thing is he's not connected to the internet and in charge of our nuclear arsenals. So, we're still safe.
That's true. But that is true. But speaking of things blowing up, this week we're going to talk about Theranos. I think I'm saying that right. They are a tech company.
Theranos.
And kind of like the bad guy in Avengers, right? No, that's Thanos. There's like an extra R in there.
Yeah.
But it's really close. So anyways, we're going to be talking about them because they had a little something happen this week, and they got in trouble, I should say, with the SEC. Oops, for massive fraud. And well, we love companies that implode. I figured since we've kind of ignored them for the most part.
So we've
now's a great time.
Pretty far out of our way to like not pile on this show. And it's not that they haven't risen up to the level of our notice. It's just been given some space. So yeah, I'm ready to make.
I feel like now's the time to get into it. So I guess where we're going to start with is there are 7 specific things that Theranos is in trouble for with the SEC. Oops. And so we're going to kind of go through them. But if you're not familiar with them, the idea behind them is that they were once valued at over $9 billion.
That's a lot of billions of dollars.
That's a lot of billions of dollars. That's right. And they have raised $700 million. And according to the SEC, through an elaborate years-long series of lies and exaggerations. Oops. And kind of bad news. And but the idea was that they said that they figured out how to test, how to run, that's the right word, how to run multiple blood tests, like hundreds of blood tests on just a few droplets of blood.
All right.
Because beforehand, like I don't know if you've ever had like a complete blood panel or something like built up.
I got one coming up.
There you go. They walk in with this big needle, they stick it in your arm, and then they just like they pop in a vial, get some blood, pop it out, pop in another one, get some out, pop in another one, get some out, and they're all for individual tests. And it's not like droplets. Like they're taking tablespoons. That feels right to me. It might just be like a tablespoon and a half, but like not drops. Okay. That's what we're talking about.
Significant.
When it's all said and done, again, depending on how many tests you're going to get done, like you could have given up a couple cups worth of blood. Yeah. Fun times. And even then they're not doing hundreds. They're doing tens of tests. And so this is kind of like you said, this is a game changer, right? Oh man, we can just get a little bit of blood and we can just test everything at once. Awesome possum. So that was the ideal. It's the idea. It's red. It is led by a lady named Elizabeth Holmes. And it's hard to gauge how old she is. I don't know if it matters, but at least to my view, I mean, it matters a little. She looks young. I guess that's why I'm like.
She was a young-ish, not super young, but she was a young-ish female CEO of an incredibly exciting, hugely successful tech startup, essentially.
Oh my gosh, this is crazy. She's as old as I am. Wait, how old am I? She's 34. We'll just say that. Oh yeah. She was born February 3rd, 1984. She's like, she's like 4 months younger than me.
You know, she's not as rich as Zuckerberg, but you know, she's in that same class as a female CEO. Like in the, you know,
we're talking about her and no one's talking about me. Like,
yeah, it's worth stating the fact that there aren't many.
My net worth might be worth more than hers at this point.
Well, yeah,
but
she's
walking.
Well, that's not
walking up to.
That is kind of the point. But my point is that of bringing up the fact that she's female is that like a lot of tech news really, she was a bit of a darling because when you would have a panel of successful tech CEOs, it'd be mostly white males. And then you have this one female on there as this young, super successful CEO. And people were like, awesome, we got to have her on. So she got a lot of attention for her company because she was doing something that not many women are doing, which is, you know.
Yeah, running a multi-billion-dollar startup / company. Yeah. And doing some amazing technology.
Yeah, so she got a lot of attention,
seemingly. So it turns out that what I described their technology, that didn't work. That's the fundamental problem, is that it simply couldn't do what they said. So it's funny. I remember it's the guy from, and this is me not doing my research ahead of time. Good job, James. He's from one of the startup incubators, Y Combinator. He writes some blog posts every once in a while, and he wrote one a couple years ago that was like, essentially he called it like fake it till you make it, or like do it manually if you have to, was his thing. He was like, there are a bunch of tech companies where you've got these ideas of how you can automate a process. And he kind of ran through like this food delivery startup idea. Mm-hmm. And so he was saying, like, you know, when you first get started, he was like, promise people that it's this seamless process where you order online and then they're going to get their food, right? He's like, that'd be awesome. He's like, that's your promise. That's what you're going for. But he's like, just start it. But like, create a form that when someone submits it, you get an email that you then, like through MailChimp, that you then open up and go, oh, okay, here's the order, make the food, and then go deliver it. He goes, boom, you're in business, you're making money, and most importantly, you're getting feedback. But from the user's perspective, what they're seeing is this web interface that feels like it's automated, but it's a highly manual process. And then he's like, and then what you figure out is, well, what's my bottleneck? I'm going to go automate that now. Right. And he's like, and then you systematically figure out what's important to the customer. We're missing this feature. Okay, well, let's add that. It's just a form. Right, yeah. At this point. And he goes, and maybe they don't like that food. Hey, great. Guess what? It costs you nothing to do this. because you were doing it out of your own kitchen and it was a form. You didn't invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into this automated, awesome idea when turns out everyone wanted Chinese food, not Thai food. Like,
right.
It's like you learn things like that. And he's like, and eventually you keep killing bottlenecks to the point where, hey, guess what? This is now an automated business. All right.
Like a really good plan for a food startup company.
Or any company,
Any
right?
company,
Is the idea. He's saying, make a promise, have a plan for how to get there, which I think is a critical part of it. He's like, and by the way, the promise was all you got to do is order your food online and we'll give it to you. Like that was the promise. And you didn't have to say how you're going to do it. You just said, this is all you got to do. Right. And he's like, and at first maybe there isn't a lot of great technology behind it, but eventually you can create that and you're off to the races. So, so for this number one thing where, what they would actually do was,
this is Theranos we're talking about.
This is Theranos now. Okay. They made this promise. We can run hundreds of blood tests on just a few drops of blood.
Cool.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, even though they said they could run like 200 tests, it could really only do a dozen or so. And for the vast majority of its tests, it was actually using equipment that was already out on the market.
Okay.
So it was one of those where it was like, all right, we've promised you, if you just give us a little bit of blood, we will be able to provide you over 200 test results. I get that. And they were able to say, well, and they didn't tell you this because maybe they don't have to. Well, we can't actually do that using this singular machine, but we can with our machine and using other people's machines.
Right. Okay.
So, so we kind of getting with that, with the Y Combinator idea of like, yeah, it's a fake it till you make it. But if you say the right thing and you promise it in such a way where you're not necessarily saying it's all done on one amazing, beautiful machine, sure, you can get away with it.
Yeah.
The only problem is that is not worth $9 billion. and so what they did was they kind of took that next step and said, oh, no, we're doing it all with this one machine. Game over. And that is where the SEC really got into trouble because of like all these other issues that came up. That was number one. Number two is that they faked demonstrations when striking deal with one of its major clients. Maybe you've heard of them, Walgreens. Yeah, oops. So they put these things called mini labs inside of Walgreens and Safeway stores. And basically it was, again, they were talking about when they did the demonstrations for the executives, they said that they put all the equipment, what did it say? It said they put, she told her employees to put the equipment in the room where the guys were collecting blood samples from the executives, but instead of processing the blood on the Theranos machines, they secretly ran some tests on equipment outside the lab. And so again, it was one of those where, and this is where they get in trouble, was they said they were running it all on this one machine in the room. Yeah, it turns out they weren't. Walgreens paid them a cool $100 million as an innovation fee to help them roll out these machines to their stores faster. Matt, you can't see this, but Matthew's shaking his head right now, just going, oh man. So it turns out Walgreens is suing Theranos. I'm trying to seek $140 million to recover what they put into it. Yeah. Apparently, I guess they said it was settled for less than 30 million, but still, they just were not super happy with it. The third issue that they had was they also gave investors fake demonstrations and misleading information about its clinical trials.
Hey, man. The question is, okay, you know what? I have a question. But before we get into that question that I have, I want to let you know who this episode is being brought to.
Yeah.
This week's sponsor is Modern Medicine. It saves lives, and it's pretty awesome. So, get out there.
Most days.
Get some modern medicine and make investments in
Get yourself some modern medicine.
Yeah, and they're supporting this episode. So if you get modern medicine, we'll get a kickback on that somehow. by you being alive, which is
and listening to this podcast.
It's pretty good. So
we're okay with that. That's a win. That's a win. So it turns out faking lab tests wasn't.
Okay, so my question.
Oh yeah.
I want to know where it started. Because it was the fake. Was it always fake it till you make it? Did somebody pitch the idea of we could combine all these tests, make it seem like this highly integrated thing? And that was always like. At that point, it didn't feel like you were really cheating because you were giving them something legitimate. Yeah. You were saying, yeah, we're
I was by the way, I rewatched this YouTube video today with Jesse, who actually originally shared it with me, and I was like, we just have to watch this again because we had pizza for lunch, and it right around this. It was this Barb the Pizza Eater. If you have not seen that YouTube video, it's amazing.
How about
and one of the things he
give me your pizza.
yeah. And one of the things he goes, look, we only give money to legitimate businesses. And she goes, oh yeah. I legitimately love pizza. Yeah. She's trying to. Yeah.
It's like
so. You said the word legitimate, and I was like, "Oh man, it just totally reminds me of that." And it actually works for this. We'll link to that video in the show notes. It's totally worth watching.
It's such a business idea. I will eat people's leftovers pizza. What? No, just hear me out. But.
There's so much that's so good about that. I'm sorry. Continue.
I really want to understand because you can see the logic, right? Because like you said,
this is like a rabbit hole of lies where it started out pretty nonchalant. Oh yeah, we'll be able to figure this out. Yeah. And then once you do, give me a call. And somehow it was like, yeah, we can provide these tests for you.
You see, the thing is that the user who's ordering food from your new food startup isn't supposed to be seen behind the curtain. But the investors are. So it's the question is, at what point, when was the first time that they decided to not show to just do the example that they showed?
Do you get the sense that they always felt like they were just on the cusp of solving it? And so, no need to tell them because we're going to replace all these machines. By the time we actually do the install, we'll be using our stuff.
Honestly,
you know what I mean?
I think you had marketers in charge of everything. And they were just like, look, what we're selling is the promise of this. That's what they're buying.
Right. Which is kind of what I talked about.
We'll be able to innovate our way into actually having this product. And nobody ever sat down and said, that's kind of unethical though, right? And so I just want to know, where on this spectrum they landed of when was the first time that they just didn't tell their investors where they were actually at, and or when was the first time? Was it this real gradation thing of they did a demonstration for somebody they didn't know was an investor,
they
thought it was just a customer, and that investor decided to throw in money and tell their friends, and now you can't really you're in this weird space of we'll just keep the story going? Or was it always just this intentional, what we're doing is we're selling the dream? That's my question.
These next two lies will really make you wonder. So here's the first one. This is technically number 4 here. She lied about their military contracts. She said to their investors that their technology had been deployed by the U.S. Department of Defense in the battlefield in Afghanistan and on medevac helicopters.
That's super impressive.
Yes. It was in use for the Department of Defense in a burn study, but it was never actually used in a battlefield, never in Afghanistan, and never on medevac helicopters. So it's kind of like this habit of maybe stretching the truth a little bit. Yeah. Or you're like, did she actually think that happened? And because when I get to, so there's this next one. And then when I get to number 6, you're going to go, maybe she just doesn't get it. I don't know. So number 5, she said that they were going to make $100 million a year. They ended up making about $100,000 a year. No. 100 with the yeah. She said they would make. I'm reading that right. There's a lot of zeros here. So she said we're going to make $100 million in revenue, and that they were on track to generate $1 billion. This was in 2015. it turns out that they made just $100,000, and we're nowhere near the 100 million mark. I mean, we're talking like that's quite a bit to be off by. That's a 1,000 factor.
Yeah, it's a couple orders of magnitude. And
yeah.
To be off by an order of magnitude is an issue. To be off by a couple is you're really starting.
That's another one where you're like, so I don't know, like you hear those two things and you're like, gosh, like the military one, you go, was she mistaken? And then the thing that makes me go, was she mistaken, was number 6. She said that they didn't need to get FDA approval for what they were doing, which according to but they said, we're going to do it anyways because it's the gold standard and we should. Well, it turns out that the FDA said, no, it's required, and they have records telling her so.
I'm gonna say, I think.
But she told, while raising money, she told investors, and this is why the SEC is interested. Oh, no, the process is voluntary. We don't have to do it, but we're choosing to. And that's where the SEC steps in, right, dude? Like, you can't lie to investors. That's a problem, and that's a big one. And yeah, and then by the way, the last one, which it is what it is. They told the media everything, right? They didn't just tell it to their potential clients. They didn't just tell it to investors. They also pumped it to the media. She was on the cover of Forbes magazine as being awesome, and things like that for what they were doing. And so it turns out if they if or when it gets sold or liquidated, she won't get the profit from any of her equity until over $750 million is returned to investors and other shareholders, which, given how much money they did not make, $100,000, and their valuation, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Having run the numbers, I have noticed how far short $100,000 falls of $750 million. So
they raised $700 million. So a little bit of an issue. But no, that's a great question. Like, how does, outside of like trying to do a Ponzi scheme type of thing, like purposely going out there and defrauding people, like how do you get to this?
Honestly, what it is I think that a lot of time it's one of those things where when you couple the Y Combinator guy's comments like that, because there's a lot of people that move fast and break things. Fake it till you make it. And then you give the explanation behind these bold, counterintuitive statements, and you realize actually what you said is not really true. You're not really faking it until you're making it. What you're doing is you're testing an interface and using that to determine where to invest next. Ultimately, you're delivering on your promise and you're being ethical about to your
right.
You're telling everybody the truth. Ultimately, really and truly, move fast and break things. The Facebook story, and
I think the point in on that blog post was to say don't spend all your time and energy making this. Do your test, build it, and then come to us for money once you've figured out the secret sauce piece.
Right.
It's like you can do this on your own. That's what's cool about this idea.
Right. And Facebook's, move fast and break things. One of the interesting parts about Facebook is that the servers never go down. Like the only time Facebook has ever gone down was when internet infrastructure goes down, and not Facebook's internet infrastructure, but like domain name servers, and they get pointed to
or my personal Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because as fast as they move and as much as they break, somehow they manage to move fast and never break anything. And that's important to understand. At the core of these bold statements they're kind of disingenuous. And
their break things is saying we're breaking expectations, and we're not going to say we're doing things the way it's always been done. No, let's break that. The feature, whatever they make, will work.
Right.
Like some would say they broke Messenger when they added stories to the top of it. And I think that's an appropriate use of that term. The app always worked.
But then you meet somebody who's a bit of a liar and unethical and has a hard time understanding why ethics are important, and then you start throwing at her accolades, attention, and billions of dollars.
And expectations.
And all of a sudden, those, the loose moral fiber coupled with the encouragement of bold but inaccurate statements, you can totally see how somebody in her position, if you could, let yourself pretend like lions totally chill for a couple of seconds and think, well, this is what, you feel like you're not alone in these actions, and you feel like you're doing what, quote, everybody else is doing or what everybody's telling you to do. You're getting by on it. And I think the interesting part is that she could not have done it alone. That's the part that is really interesting, is that other people had to have bought into into the deception. Now, so then the next question becomes, like, were there, because I can totally see how if you're just some lowly, tech, and you're being told, hey, take the blood sample from the Walgreens guys and like run it on these other machines, don't do it in the room. And you might think, well, that's kind of weird. I mean, like, we just told them we were going to do it on these machines, but whatever, like, I can't lose this job. This is what I do. And you just kind of do it. Like, I could see people falling into that trap, but at the same time, I don't know, man. Like, but there had to have been people that were like, yeah, we get what we're doing here. And I don't know. That's interesting. It's super fascinating just watching a bunch of really despicable people sort of joining together.
Yeah, it's tough. I get like trying to come up with, it's a new technology. We're doing something amazing. You feel like you're on the cusp of it at all times. And we can just figure out this one piece. Well, and it's like one of those, like, people have talked about like the perpetual machines, it's like, man, I feel like we're so close to it. And you're like, yeah, but there's this, like, unfortunately, this one law of physics where we're having trouble getting around.
Right.
We can get to the limit of it, but we cannot touch it.
Right. Yeah. The perpetual motion machines are a perfect example of people saying, well, we have this theory that should get us to 110% efficiency. We've gotten to 95% efficiency. We're so close. We should be able to, we're on the edge of being able to break through. And so we just need a little more money to get that last breakthrough. So we're going to fake it just a little bit, but we're so close, it'll pay off.
We're going to name it a hoverboard. We're going to name it a perpetual motion machine. It's not really, we know it, but we're not going to correct you either.
Yeah, exactly. Technically, you only get 95% of the energy out that you put into it, so we're pretty close, but
it's also not bad.
Yeah. And it depends on how you calculate it, and you could I could totally see. Yeah, that's actually a really good analogy. She's a literal snake oil salesperson. This is what snake oil salespeople do, is they sit there and they say, hey, it has all these health benefits, and if you just take this, it'll do good for you. And the thing is that the power of
the placebo.
The placebo effect.
Oh, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I should have gone.
I know. Yeah, it's a real measurable thing. It has medical, validity. People get better. People take the snake oil and get better. That is not a false statement. The thing is that it's placebo. So charging people extra money for a placebo and lying to them and getting extra money from your investors, well, that's like unethical and really illegal. And that's what she was doing. She was a snake oil salesman. She just was a super successful snake oil salesman.
Dude, that's the other thing about technology, that just it amplifies all of these things where
people are,
back, you were talking about like back in the day, you were a salesperson and you could only, it feels weird using this language about someone. You could only scam so many people. Like, how many times can you hit in a year? Right. That was that was your limit. And with this, it's like, no, it's technology. We can ramp this up and be worth $9 billion. Whereas beforehand, like you could probably make $1 million doing something like that. And it's just like the technology is allowed such a scale now where like things like this, you just go, whoa. And I mean, the worst part is like, we all wanted the company to work. Like, that sounds awesome.
Yeah. She was right. We were hoping they were right, because that would be.
Yeah. You're not going to look that close because the company is telling me what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I'm into that.
You know who
Especially if they can return 200 tests in another room.
All right.
Why would I question that?
You know who I'm really looking forward to finding out is doing the same thing? is a Magic
Spiegel.
No.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I thought about them too. I was like,
Yeah.
I wonder if that's one of them.
Yep, it totally is. They've figured something out. They've got a seed of action. I don't think they'll get SEC issues. My bet is that they've been honest enough with their investors that they won't get in legal trouble and lose all their equity, but there's no way that they're worth what they say.
I think he's just great at selling the dream. And he's been very clear about that, which is why they don't have a product. But I think he's just a fantastic. If you combined him with Theranos, we would probably be in trouble.
Yeah.
That's the sense that I get. Well, there you go. So that's what's up with Theranos. They're in trouble. They don't make what they said anymore. They're in the process of imploding. We'll see. We probably won't talk about them anymore because that's how we are. But I will probably mention them at some point. But our question for you, I don't know. What's our question for them? What do you think? Do you think that she's a pathological scammer out to get you kind of person? Or do you think it was just one of those pot slowly boiled and the truth kind of got away from you and you liked the attention and all of that and you just kind of let it keep going, especially thinking other people do it too? I know with all of this harassment stuff going around, I've got to imagine that she was not immune from things like that, and she probably saw a side of humanity too that you and I are just not exposed to make her go, this is totally acceptable. And man, that sounds horrible to say that, but I have a hunch that plays a role in all of this as well. But we'd like to know what you think. What do you guys think? Let us know. And with that, we want to say thanks for joining us. We really do appreciate it. You can check out all the links to the show on furlobros.com/331, or you can subscribe to us on iTunes or Google Play. We want to say thank you to primarily Stephanie Lee of BuzzFeed for really doing a ton of research and breaking it all down very simply. Thanks, Steph. And this podcast is sponsored by listeners just like you and Modern Medicine. Go get yourself some, or as my daughter would say, do you need some medicine? She'll test my heart and she'll go, sounds good. Need some medicine? Like, I don't think it works that way.
Yeah. You're the doctor. You tell me.
Yeah. Well, I'm just like, any of my heart sounded good. So, all right, whatever. But yeah, get yourself some Modern Medicine. And so with that, I am James Furlo, and my Thanos-fearing brother is Matthew Furlo. And so we will talk next time.